Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Sunday Scaries at Grandma's. My name is Erica Gambatese.
Hi, my name is Sharon Gambatese. I'm Erica's grandmother.
Today, due to recent events, we thought that it would be appropriate to talk about war and just talk about what's happening in the world right now, maybe make some parallels to history, and just talk about where we think it's going from here. So as everyone knows, on February 24th, Russia invaded Ukraine. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Mimi, is has there been any time throughout history where this kind of seems familiar, or anything that is somewhat similar to what's happening right now, just the way that people feel, the way that people are panicked, and the way that people are sad?
Well, I think with the Vietnam War, it felt like the same. I mean, people, everybody was getting drafted, and they were all like 19-year-old kids. And I know a lot of them that went over there, and I know a lot of them got killed.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know much about the Vietnam War, and I know I learned about it throughout school, and I haven't really done my history intake since high school when I learned about it and things like that. But just from what I'm seeing now and what people are kind of concerned about now, it does kind of seem really similar to the Vietnam War and just stopping the spread of Russia basically and communism and stuff like that, which I know it's a completely different context.
It is a different, yes,
yeah, it's
completely
completely different. It's not the Red Scare or anything like that, but I do see how there's a lot of parallels to now, and I also see a lot of people on social media worrying about getting drafted and things like that, and people are making jokes about it and stuff, but as we know right now, no one in America is even near getting to the point of a draft. So basically, to go into just facts about what's happening right now in Ukraine and just what's happened over the past few days. So like I said, Russia has invaded Ukraine on February 24th. They invaded. And basically, the whole reason why Putin wants to invade Ukraine and take over Ukraine is because he said now for many years that he wants to expand Russia into Europe, and he thinks that Ukraine belongs to Russia. And as we all learned in school, there used to be the Soviet Union, and that fell in around 1990 and 1991.
And he wants that back.
Right. Yeah. So Putin wants back the Soviet Union, and Ukraine is kind of a larger country that used to be a part of the Soviet Union, and it borders Russia. So he's trying to invade Ukraine. He thinks that Ukraine belongs to Russia, and he wants Ukraine back. So then from that, we can maybe imply that he wants other countries.
You're right. I think he will.
That also want to be a part of the Soviet Union. Also, Ukraine has showed desire in the past to be a part of NATO, and they said that they want to be a part of NATO. They've gotten a lot of support to become a part of NATO, but they are not a part of NATO. So because of that,
the United States won't help them.
Right. Well, we'll send aid, money, equipment, things like that. We put sanctions on Russia. But we are not going to send U.S. troops into Ukraine because they are not a NATO ally.
Right.
But
what?
Like I said, so the Soviet Union was made up of 15 countries. Now these 15 countries are independent. So those countries are Armenia, and then I also might pronounce some of these wrong, so I apologize in advance.
They're hard to pronounce.
Yeah. Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. So those are the 15 now independent countries that once were a part of the Soviet Union. So then out of those 15, there are 3 countries that are a NATO ally, and that's Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and those border Ukraine. So those 3 countries border Ukraine. So we know that the U.S. is not going to send any troops into Ukraine because they are not a NATO ally. But if Putin decides to keep expanding, if he is successful in taking over Ukraine and he decides to keep expanding and he decides to expand into a NATO country like Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania, or also even Poland and Romania, because those also border Ukraine, even though they weren't a part of the Soviet Union. Then, according to Article 5 of the NATO treaty, the U.S. has to send troops over. We have to intervene as a part of our agreement with the NATO alliance.
Why do you think that they didn't join NATO, the Ukrainians?
They wanted to join.
But why didn't they?
I don't know the exact details about this. I know that they wanted to join, but I think it could just be an issue of, like, if they join, then they would, like, have to help. They would have to send troops over to Ukraine. If Russia were to invade, I'm not exactly sure, like, why they haven't. I know that it was, like, recently, and I know that they got support to join NATO by some countries, but I don't know. I don't want to say stuff and be wrong. So
Right.
It could just be, like, other countries didn't want them to join. And I know it was really recent, so maybe, like, they were in the process of joining and it just wasn't completed yet. But I do know that they want to join, and that's why Putin, like, decided to invade Ukraine fast.
Yeah.
And now, because he doesn't want to get to the point where Ukraine is a part of NATO, because then they'll be backed by a lot of, like, large and strong countries. And right now they aren't. So we are sending, as of right now, we're sending money to Ukraine to help them. We're sending military equipment. And then we also put sanctions on Russia. So as far as that goes, sanctions, they are financial punishments, and they're put on, like, the Russian economy, and the whole goal of this is to slow down Putin and slow down the Russian economy to the point where it's going to hurt them long term, and they'll pull out of Ukraine if Ukraine can hold up that long.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Right. But as of right now, like, these sanctions are not going to immediately stop Putin. Like, and even long term, I mean, he might, like, run the Russian economy into the ground and still try and keep going into the.
But I think he's crazy besides.
Yeah, I think he's on drugs, like, actually.
Really?
Well, I know that Hitler was literally on meth the entire World War II. Like, he was high on so many different drugs.
Well, yeah, he must have been, because he was crazy too.
Yeah, I actually think
Putin is on drugs.
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, I don't have proof, but I feel like he is.
Because he's not. Who does that?
Right. I remember I was watching a documentary, like, a while ago about World War II, and I'm pretty sure that it was the Nazis, and they would just give meth to all of the Nazis so that they could have a lot of energy to just fight through the night and,
I believe
like, keep
that.
going. And I remember,
Yeah,
I think it was, like, France that was really thrown off by how strong, like, the Nazi army was, because they were, like, fighting through the night. They were not taking breaks, but it was just because they were, like, high on drugs all the time, and, like, they had so much energy to get through it. So I mean, this is just I think that Putin is on some type of drugs. I mean, I don't know. He's an evil man, obviously.
he is evil.
I mean, he's killing people in his own country. He's killing so many people in Ukraine. And then now, you know, in Ukraine, if you're a man between the age of 18 to 60, you have to stay in the country. You can't leave. So it's separating families. And these men are just going to be forced to fight. And
Well, there's 176 deaths already.
yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. And it's just going to keep adding up, and it's going to be on both sides. But, you know, it's also one of those things where we aren't sending our own troops in, because once we send troops into Ukraine to try and help, then all of the other NATO allies have to back us up in helping in Ukraine. And then that just turns into another world war because of all of the nuclear power that all of these people have.
that's very scary. The nuclear power,
right,
that Russia has, for sure.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it's really just, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, choose your evil. It's either we don't intervene, we just put sanctions on Russia, we send money to Ukraine and we try and help them, or we intervene and then a lot of other people have to intervene, and then it leads to deaths around the world. It would lead to more deaths in Ukraine. It would lead to more deaths in Russia. And it could literally lead to the end of the world because of all of the nuclear power that all of these countries have. So it would really just be more of a death toll if we all got involved in
And here's the thing on
Ukraine.
media, on the media, they don't tell you everything. So really, some of these things we don't know what's really going on.
Oh yeah.
Talking about social media, um, they can't tell us really everything that's going on because they have to keep things a secret from the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's really just like a crazy situation because social media is so heavily involved. Like now with this war and everything that's going on, like I've seen things that I would never think I would see on TikTok. I saw like a Russian soldier jumping out of a plane into Ukraine on TikTok. It was like a live feed. It's really crazy now.
That's crazy.
Right. And it's like everything you can see. And then it's also one thing that is like really scary too is how like cyber attacks and things like that are being used as far as social media goes in this war because I saw how now like the Russian government is like literally making fake Instagram, fake social media accounts.
That's what you said. Yeah.
To comment on people's posts. So like it will be like a big post like concerning like Russia invading Ukraine and things like that. And then there'll be like these like Russian bot Instagram accounts where it'll be like a fake account that looks completely real and it'll be someone commenting being like Russia is invading Ukraine because Ukraine is hiding like so many nuclear bombs and they're hiding like military equipment that they're planning on unleashing the world to try and like twist the narrative and make it seem like Putin is doing like the world a favor by like invading Ukraine, taking over Ukraine because he thinks that like Ukraine's dangerous to everyone and things like that. So they're like they're literally like making like bots on Instagram to flip the narrative and just try and convince American people that Russia is in the right in this whole situation, which is definitely something that is just completely like new. And I mean, it's the whole same thing about, you know, how like other countries were going into Facebook and um other social media accounts like during the 2016 and 2020 elections, like just throwing propaganda like onto Facebook. Like they were paying to put like ads and stuff.
I know.
Because like they would like Russia and other countries wanted a certain candidate to win in America so that it would favor everything that they want to do in their country. And we didn't even catch on to it that they were doing that because now it's so easy for them to hack into.
Everybody's getting hacked lately anyway.
Right. So I mean that's a huge thing that people are really afraid of in America because as far as this war goes, people are like, well, no one would dare touch America. Like no one would come on our soil, things like that. But I mean, for now, as far as technology goes, it's so easy for them to sit at home, stay home and hack into all of our accounts. They can hack into our propaganda. They can hack into everything that we see on a daily basis. And another thing that people are afraid of is them hacking into our banks and affecting the American economy because they can hack into all of the systems in our banks and things like that. So that's one thing, and it's also kind of tied to all of the sanctions, like how I was talking about before, that America and other countries also are putting on Russia. So I mean, there's a lot of other countries too that, of course, think that what's happening right now is wrong. So they're also putting sanctions on Russia to get Putin to stop invading Ukraine or just trying to like stop him, which like I said before, short term it's not going to do anything, but long term it might crumble the Russian economy enough to get them to stop. But of course, this is negatively affect America and other countries who are putting these sanctions on Russia. So like, for example, sanctions are these financial punishments that we're putting on Russia. But to put these punishments on Russia, we're stopping exports out of Russia. We're stopping investments like into Russian economy. We're stopping loans, any financial assistance to Russia. And then we're also blocking assets that are in America that like belong to Russians. So there will be like a lot of Russian elites and things like that who have money in banks in America, but they're like Russian banks. And we have the right to freeze all that money so they can't access it.
Okay.
So we're basically just putting a hold on their money in America. And we're just trying to get them to like just to stop or just like crumble their economy enough. But that could hurt us, of course, because now we can't trade really with them. And also, it will just affect American money and everyone's money in America because, one, Russia is a huge supplier of natural gas and oil.
That's right.
So now that we are putting these sanctions on them, we're not getting their oil. That's going to increase our gas prices.
I think it did overnight one night this week.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, when I was driving here, I saw it was $3.39 here.
Yeah.
It's usually cheaper by my house than it is here.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's always cheaper like in the city than in the suburbs.
$3.39. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so gas prices are going to go up. They're already really high, so that's of course that just affects, everyone. I mean, these are things going on so far across the world, but it's going to affect how you get to work. So,
well, it affects me because I really think where I'm going to go because I know the gas prices are so high.
Right.
So I just basically do my errands around here because of the gas prices.
Yeah, and like for me, I commute so far to work.
I know.
I have like a 40-minute commute to work. It's a 60-mile round trip, and just the fact that gas prices, it just bums me out so much because I'm already like struggling with money and everything. So now the gas prices go up, it just like makes it like so hard to just, I don't know, just live your life,
It does.
Like the world revolves around gas. So
yeah, you have to think about what you're doing.
Yeah, so that sucks. And then of course, when energy prices change, then and the price of energy goes up, then inflation's going to go up.
It has gone up already.
Well, yeah, we already have a huge inflation problem. That's just going to get worse now.
Oh, don't say that.
It is. Well, yeah, and it sucks too because I mean, for me at least, from what I see, I think inflation is going up so quickly. It's really getting out of hand. The cost of living is insane now, and I don't think a lot of companies are paying their employees to keep up with that at all. I mean,
well, they're probably struggling also.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, inflation has gone up. I think someone said 14% in the past year. I don't know the exact number, so don't quote me on that. But I know for like my company, we only got like a 3% inflation like raise for the year, even though
I know,
everything's gone up. So I'm like, how does that even make sense? It doesn't make sense.
Cost of living, yeah.
Well, yeah, I want to do a whole episode on inflation because I mean, it's really just getting out of hand. And then
terrible.
All of this is going to just make it worse because now, I mean, now that we aren't, like trading with Russia and we put these sanctions on them and we can't get their oil, then we're going to have to get it from other places. It's going to cost more money. Then that's going to just lead to inflation because oil, natural gas, that is a huge energy source for America. So that's going to go up. Inflation's going to go up. The stock market's going to change a lot because since there is like so much uncertainty around the world, investors are going to pull out of a lot of things. So it's really just going to make the stock market just very unpredictable. It's going to go crazy. Then of course, like I said before too, like the cyber attacks can happen on banks and things like that. So I don't know.
What a country. I mean, what a way to be living nowadays. I mean, it's too bad really because.
Well, I mean, imagine what it's like in Ukraine.
Oh, God, I can't. I mean,
we're just like reaping financial effects that of course are like a large part is from COVID and things like that and how things are changing so fast. But I don't know. Lately, I just feel like the world is truly like crumbling day by day.
It is.
And I mean, but they of course have it worse in Ukraine and in Europe right now. I mean, even beyond Ukraine, in countries that are surrounding Ukraine, they're probably terrified,
Well, and the other thing is, how about the little kids? There's so many little kids and they're hiding in subways and.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, just like how I said before about how like the men have to stay back and they have to fight. So, I mean, there's a large chance that they're not going to make it back to their families. I mean, and even the president of Ukraine too, he is staying and he's fighting, which I think is like very honorable and that's like amazing. And I don't know, that's just, it's really sad though. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It really is sad. And I wanted to talk about this because I mean it's really important, and I think like as far as American like history goes, when bad things happen around the world, like we talk about it for a week and then it stops getting talked about, you know? And I really hope that people like keep up with this and they keep talking about this, like even when it doesn't affect our troops and it doesn't affect like our actual involvement, because I mean this is still affecting our day-to-day lives. Like I said, it's going to affect how we take our commute to work. So I really just hope that people like keep talking about, because it's like important, and I get that it's controversial and people in America are already fighting with each other about
Yes, they are.
whose fault it would be, whether like who was the president. And I mean there's literally points to both sides, like 100%. And people, I don't know. It's really sad that I mean there's such tragedy going on across the world because people aren't getting along, and we're like, oh wow, that really sucks. But it wouldn't be happening if this person was the president of the United
Yeah,
States.
what do you
And I'm
think?
like, well, why don't you stop contributing to the conflict, and why don't you all together in unison like try and think of a solution to help these people across the world, you know,
Well,
rather than
do you
blaming
think
it.
Biden's doing a good job with this?
I think he's from right now, what is going on, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's putting the sanctions on Russia. That is what we can do for right now without actually sending troops over.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it has to do with whether he's doing a good job or not. And I mean, I think from right now, he's doing what is supposed to be done. And he's
Okay.
doing what all the other countries that we're allies with are doing too, because we don't want to send troops over. I think that sometimes he sounds like an asshat. Like, I think sometimes he just can't form a sentence, and I
Like me. He's all like me.
yeah. But I mean, as far as it goes, like people are saying, you know, that this wouldn't be happening if Trump were president, because Russia would be afraid of him.
Yes.
But that is just such a vague excuse to be like, well, this wouldn't be happening. I think that's just a whole way to pull up, you know. There's just saying that, oh, because Biden is corrupt and he's weak, then Putin wouldn't be invading.
People think that he's
Russia.
Weak.
Well, you know, I think that people think that Biden's weak, but I also don't think that Trump being president would have any difference on this, because
Well, it doesn't matter. He's not there. So
right, because I mean, no matter what, if Trump was president, like the US still would not be getting involved in this because Ukraine is not a part of NATO. So even if, and they're, it's basically kind of contradicting itself, because they're being like, oh well, Trump's like so strong that like everyone's afraid of him. They're basically implying that if Trump were president, then he would send troops over, which would lead to a nuclear war. So I mean, I just think it's kind of like contradictory. And I mean, also Trump wanted the US out of NATO too, which if the US were to come out of NATO, then Putin would 100% go after Ukraine. I mean, because I mean, Ukraine isn't even a part of NATO, but if the US was out of NATO, then like we would have no obligation to these NATO countries. So he would go after Ukraine. He would even have more balls to go after other NATO countries if we were to drop out. And that is what Trump wanted. And that's what he planned to do in his second term.
I did not know that. So I don't know too much about this subject. So I'm glad that you're carrying this as well as you are.
Right.
You're giving some good facts here.
Well, yeah. And I don't like, I'm not trying to even be controversial about it. I just wish that like people would see what's happening and not be like, oh, well, our election was rigged, and if Trump were president, this wouldn't be happening. And it's like, I don't know, get your head out of your ass and be like, you know what, this is really sad that this is happening, and like, what can I do about it, and what are we doing now because of this? And you know, we are imposing these sanctions, and it's going to hurt our economy, but I really don't think that this is beyond America, and this is beyond our own egos. This is beyond our own like opinions and what our desires, you know. It is beyond us. And at this point, this has to do with conflict in between Russia and what Putin, who is high on drugs, wants to do with his own ego, and like just to get what he wants.
What do you think how do you think this is going to resolve itself? What measures would you think it would take? I mean, from what's happening now, I would say that like best case scenario would be that this is like, of course, like a pipe dream, but like if like Ukraine were to hold Russia off long enough where Russia were to lose enough money and like lose enough people, and their economy would collapse far enough that Putin retreated and decided to not do this anymore and leave.
then, worst case scenario is that he quickly overcomes Ukraine because they are a small country in comparison to Russia, and they are not getting like actual troops sent in from other countries at the moment. So that would be the worst case scenario, that Putin actually overcomes Ukraine and takes control of them, and then
I think that's what's going to happen.
Invades other countries surrounding Ukraine,
like Lithuania.
And then he eventually invades NATO countries, which would lead to
Americans,
which would lead to all other countries that are a part of NATO getting involved, which would lead to a world war.
Oh,
so
that's such good news.
Yeah. So that's worst case scenario, and I don't know. War is just, it fucking sucks. I hate it. It was always something that you learned about in school, and it just seems so like, doesn't seem real. And that is just such American privilege too, where, we don't experience war like other countries do. We learn about it in school, and it just seems so far out of our hands, and it seems so far away. And it just doesn't because it doesn't happen on our soil. Like 9/11 happened on our soil, and
that was devastating.
Right. And it was devastating, and we talk about it all the time, but things like that happen in other countries like on a weekly basis. And that's not like what we see. And what we learn is just, we learn about it, and it just doesn't seem real. It's just part of our history class. But and now it's
becoming real.
Right. And nothing like this has, well, as far as I could comprehend, hasn't happened in my lifetime. And I don't know. I really wonder where it's going to go. But it's also just like one of those things, like making a full circle back. Like, this is the whole reason why I wanted to start this podcast, was to talk about like why I would be afraid for future generations. Because this terrifies me, and to see like where this might go is terrifying. The world might be like destroyed if it goes in a certain direction, which hopefully that people are smart enough, and that these leaders have their egos in check, where they can realize that the world surviving is more important than their country being superior. But you never know.
That's true.
It really, to me, and like I think to my generation, this all just seems so like out of,
just something that you would read about, and it's
just
here.
So out of like our realm of reality. Like, it doesn't seem real. And there's one thing I want to talk about, is just how people in my generation are really talking about this, like on social media and things like that. And I think at first a lot of people were making jokes, and like, I'll admit, like, I definitely laughed at like all the jokes that people were making online. Like, people were making memes out of like Putin's face and things like that. Like, people are trying to like make like humor out of it, and they're like, oh well, I handle difficult situations with humor. But it's like, our situation isn't even difficult right now in America. Like, we are not experiencing like,
I'm not going to stop living my life. Everything is, you have to pick and choose what you want to do. But
right. Well, I'm just saying, like, it's really interesting how people in my generation are like handling this.
Really?
And I don't know, like, I don't have people in your generation in the past that kind of just like made fun of war,
Not really.
Like, I feel like the sense of humor in my generation is just like insane. Like, it just doesn't seem like real sometimes, Like, just people were commenting on, I guess Putin used to have, I feel like I'm saying his name wrong. I'm saying his name so many times. I know, I'm saying his name so many times that I feel like I'm like mispronouncing it every time, and I'm like getting confused. I'm like psyching myself out. But
no, don't say it. It's Putin.
Yeah, but people were like commenting on his Instagram. I guess he had like an official Instagram page that got deleted or something. But people were like commenting on it. They were being like, Vlad, this isn't you, and they were calling him like Vladdy Daddy, and just like making fun of it, and it's just really crazy. I feel like nothing would have happened like that in your generation.
Well, the social media. Some of these people that put stuff out are so creative. With pictures of Biden and what he does, and some of the things are really funny. And no, we didn't have that.
Right. Yeah. Like, to be honest, like you read them and you laugh. Like, it is funny.
It is funny.
Like, if I was in Ukraine and I was reading these things, I would be like, fuck these people. Like, they are so insensitive to what's going on, which I totally understand that side of the coin, like, obviously. And it's really crazy to me that it's like this, and how like people in America and people are making jokes about, oh, like if I get drafted, I'm like,
They do make jokes?
oh yeah, like there's a bunch of like guys now making jokes about being drafted, and then there's a bunch of girls making jokes now online about saying how if they're like, oh, if the draft kicks back in, I belong in the kitchen type of thing. Like, you know, they're saying like, oh, if the draft kicks in, then I'm going to go in the kitchen, because they're like saying like, oh, let's reverse like women's rights because I don't want to fight in a war. So I don't, it's just jokes like that. And I mean, like I said before, the draft is like super far away, and like I doubt it will actually happen. And I doubt that, I don't know. I hope it won't get to the point where America has to go over there. I mean, we're already sending troops though to like Germany and our NATO allies, because like for support there, and because there's a lot of refugees like fleeing and they need help and things like that, which is good. But we are not sending
them to war.
Yeah, we're not sending them to war. We're not sending them to Ukraine to fight. But yeah, I don't know. Going back to this whole social media thing, just seeing everything like firsthand on social media too, like it is really crazy, because now I go on Twitter, I go on TikTok, Instagram, and I can see people in Ukraine, like civilians, posting videos of missiles dropping, like posting videos of them fleeing their interviews, like firsthand, and things of like people sitting in traffic trying to leave, people sitting in traffic trying to get gas. I think they like put restrictions on how much gas you can take at the gas stations.
Probably.
Because they're trying to make sure that there's enough for everyone. And it's really crazy because, like, I mean, when you were growing up, you didn't see footage like that so easily, you know?
No, we have one little TV set, and that's right. It, and the radio.
And the radio where you would like listen. But now
it's,
I'm like, I can open up my phone any time of the day, any time of night, and I can see like live footage of what's happening there. I can see like people.
Look how far we came, though.
Right. And I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, well, it's good that people can see this, because people like need awareness, you know, this is what happens across the world and things like that.
Now, your girlfriends and your boyfriend's friends, I mean, are they into talking about this? I don't think so. Are they?
Yeah. No, yeah. I think
they are.
I mean, I think that, I mean,
like I wonder, Alexis like, and all that?
Yeah. Like, I wonder, like, when my like age group kind of like shifts where I would talk about like a lot of current stuff and I would really get into deep thought about it. I feel like in college was when I really started to get into like deep thought about like current news and like politics and certain situations like that. But yeah, I mean, like I went out with my friends last night and we talked about it for a while.
Did
like,
you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely.
And what's their thoughts?
Basically the same thing that I've been saying, just like how it's like, how, you know, like we shouldn't get involved really unless we have to, like unless he invades a NATO country, because if we get involved, then it will just insinuate a nuclear war, which would lead to more deaths in the first place. But it is just like really sad that this is happening to Ukraine, and we think that Putin's crazy, and it's just
on drugs.
I mean, it's just sad, and like we just talk about like, you know, the politics side of it, how it's really sad that now our country is just like choosing another way to break apart rather than work together and
as
things like that.
As you're drinking your margaritas, you're
right. Well, I know we even saw that last night. We went to a Mexican restaurant to get drinks, and then we went to a pizza place and we were eating pizza and drinking wine, and we were like, would you just feel so bad that we're enjoying our pizza and wine?
Really?
And cheese, and there's people dying and losing their homes across the world. It's like
you have to be thankful for that. So thankful.
I mean, yeah, I think it's important to like be in that moment and recognize that
how lucky you are.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it's still going to affect us, and I know people are going to bitch so hard about gas prices and inflation, and it sucks. It sucks, but at least we're not being kicked out of our homes.
That's right. Every day my heat goes on, and I go, "Oh my God, thank you, God, thank you."
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I'm so fortunate to have a heat.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it sucks. I complain so much already about inflation, about gas prices, about money, and all those things, and I mean that's going to get worse because of this, but.
We have everything.
Yeah, but at least we aren't being sent in a draft. At least we aren't Ukraine citizens who are being forced out of our, not even forced, but like,
can you imagine
fleeing our homes?
You can't even imagine fleeing homes. That would be like
Right. Like they're just taking a few clothes, water, and money in their documents, and they're just leaving where they grew up. It probably, I mean, that's like another thing where like I feel like ever since I was young, I was like so like turned off by war just because of like the civilian damage of it. And like I don't even think that gets like talked about enough. Like it's just so disturbing, like how many civilians die in war. And I really don't think Americans even like comprehend that, because civilians don't die. Like American civilians don't die when we are involved in war. American troops die when we're involved in war, but American civilians, they don't. I mean, like the closest that has come is literally 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. Like we don't comprehend civilian death in war. And I mean, that's just one thing. I always was like, war just made me so like sad. And I was just always like, there's just so many people who want nothing to do with war who are dying. Like the Vietnam War, how many civilians died, like how many just civilians who were like murdered and raped by American troops in the Vietnam War. And that's sad. And then also like my other grandma was born in Nagasaki, Japan, and she was 12 years old and had to leave her home while her entire city was blown up by an atomic bomb by Americans. So it's like Americans don't comprehend what it's like to lose like your own civilian life in the name of war. Like it happens in other countries, but it doesn't happen here. And like we're definitely like lucky for that, but I think we needed to be more aware of it and like how much it happens like all over the place. And I mean, that's why ever since I was young, I was like, I just don't want to be involved in other people dying. Like, and it's so hard to just like root for specific people, because either way you're rooting for murder. Even if these people are considered, bad people, I'm sure that there's a lot of 10-year-olds, like 12-year-olds, even 20-year-olds in Russia who don't want this. And like, they don't even comprehend this. There's people in Russia protesting this war, and they're getting arrested for protesting it.
I saw that.
There's a lot of people who don't want this. Like, not all Russians are the enemy that needs to be killed. And like any war, there's so many civilians that don't want anything to do with it.
There's so many innocent people involved.
Yeah, right. And it's just gross that the world takes the smartest people that they can out of every single country, and they use that smartness and they use that intelligence and that power to figure out how to kill other people. And it's really just gross to me. And that's why, I mean, war to me is just, it's gross. It's like we literally use we use so much money, we use so much intelligence, we use so much just energy to put it towards like murder.
Yeah.
And every country does it. And it's really devastating. And I mean, you of course have to do it because you have to be able to defend yourself in case something were to happen to your people, which is like why like America, it doesn't happen in America because we have such like a good army. Like we're able to defend ourselves.
We are.
If anyone were to come here, but it just sucks that so much money and intelligence and everything gets poured into the whole act of it, which, just leads to people dying. And it, of course, like people are like, oh, like, world peace, it's such a cliche type of thing, but
well, that's what everybody wants, and it's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, it's never going to happen. I mean, it's humans are way too complex, and it's crazy how human beings are just so complex to the point where we can agree on millions of different things. And it's just crazy how like region by region, everyone just has these differing beliefs. And, like Russia doesn't want democracy to spread. Like we don't want communism to spread. Right. And there's some countries that back up communism, and like we think that they're crazy for backing up communism. And then, the communists think that we're crazy for wanting democracy. And it really is just so, it's honestly just fascinating how complex human beings can be to the point where we can't live together
in peace.
Right. And we get greedy. Like that's what's happening with Russia. Like Putin's just getting greedy and he wants more, and he's going to kill people on the way. But yeah, so that was a rant, I guess it turned into.
I'm so glad you got that off your chest, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's good.
That was mine.
I didn't know it affected you that much.
Well, I mean, I think it should like affect everyone, and it's, I don't know. I mean, it's of course like very current news. It's very recent news, so it's like what I'm thinking about a lot. But I mean, as far as war goes, like I've always been so like against war, like, so it sickens me to my stomach.
Oh, of course.
I don't know. I've just, from every side, I've always been so against war, but that's always something that's bothered me, especially just, like, hearing, like, how my grandma would talk about, like, growing up in Nagasaki, like, after the bombings, and she said that, like, I think she was 12. I don't know her exact age, but
I think she was.
Yeah, I remember her just, like, telling me stories about how she evacuated. She had to live in these cabins in the mountains, like, surrounding Nagasaki for, like, weeks, and they were just all packed into these cabins, and there would be cockroaches and centipedes, like, crawling all over them. And then when they got to go back to their village, it was just flat, and everything was gone. Everything she grew up with was gone. She was 12. Like, she didn't understand what's going on. And a lot of people didn't. And a lot of people didn't want this. And she came back and she said that there was a man crawling on the ground and his eyeball was falling out.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I remember her telling me this when I was little. And I was like, like, Americans did that. And, like, just the whole fact that it's like, this is war. And, like, we do this to, like, be like, hey, back off of us. I'm going to kill a bunch of your people. It's so chaotic, and it's just so wrong. I don't know a right way, but I know that this is the wrong way.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, that's just my personal opinions on it.
We talk about, my girlfriends and I talk about pretty much every day about what's going on, because we are interested in what's going on.
Yeah.
And but I'm not going to let it ruin my life, daily life.
Right. You have to, like, stay positive, and you have to do what you can and things like that. But it's something that you should be thinking about a lot. Like, it's something that everyone should be thinking about a lot, because, like, we are privileged and, like, we don't experience what these people have to experience. And, like, I think we should also be, like, educated about it before we, like, turn it into an us problem, because that's what people are doing right now. In America, they're turning it into an us problem about our presidency, and it's creating more divide. It's creating more conflict.
Oh, the United States is so divided on it's terrible.
Which is how this is all starting in the first place. So, it's just a matter of time before, like, it just creates more problems for us here. So, I don't know. That's my closing comments. Do you have any closing comments?
My closing comments is, do the best you can. Keep up with the news, and don't let it ruin your life, but keep up with it. So, I learned a lot from you today. I'm glad that you did a little research, because I didn't know all that. I really didn't. So,
yeah. And
thanks for sharing that.
I apologize right now. If, like, I did a lot of, like, reading this morning, so I apologize right now if, like, I mispronounced anything, or if I got, like, certain numbers incorrect. But that's just what I read from a few news sources this morning. But yeah, so
no, you did. I got informed by what you said.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed reading, and I enjoyed reading about it, but, like, I'm glad that I'm reading about it, because I think it makes everything, like, it doesn't make everything make more sense, but it helps you just, like, understand what's going on, so that you can just appreciate what you have.
But I think everybody out there should go and have a good weekend and be thankful for all that we have, because we are privileged, like you said.
Right. Yes. Hopefully this just makes everyone a little bit more thankful.
Yeah.
And you can listen to this podcast internationally. So if anyone is listening out there in Ukraine, we're really sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Yeah.
It was informative to me, what you had to say. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah. I hope everyone can stay positive and be grateful for what they have. So yeah, have a good weekend, and thank you so much for listening.
And don't forget about Fat Tuesday, which is coming up. Yeah. And my sister-in-law brought me punchkis, which I'm so excited, because that's a tradition on Fat Tuesday. Right. And I want to thank her, Carm. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. You can rate us on Spotify and Apple. If you have any feedback for us, any suggestions, any topics, any questions, just let us know. We appreciate everyone listening. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Bottoms up.